At the time, I thought that was the worst thing. My parents were
You just never
horrible.
know.
No,
It bothers me.
They didn't tell you to chase your dream.
they did. They did, but it was just like, keep it in perspective. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, there you go.
At the time, I didn't really like that. You know, parents, it turns out they were right.
Like most
Strange, isn't
most
that?
time they are.
Isn't that strange how that works out to where sometimes?
No.
Well, I guess I can't hide it now.
So, I'm with you. If you suggest it. We're in such a weird place right now.
That's the best part.
That's why I say we can.
Yes.
Oh, we were bad. We were bad.
No,
I don't know if it's boys versus girls,
I will
but
start
my brother and I,
up here.
we caused our parents more grief than they ever did.
maybe I haven't noticed it lately, I hadn't heard more.
All right. Good afternoon. We'll call the meeting to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Observe a moment of silence. All right, thank you. Gentlemen.
Mayor?
So it appears that we do have a quorum. All are present and accounted for except Gene Stackhouse. So we may continue and do the business of the fire territory. With that, I'll ask for an approval of the minutes from October 3rd. Those have been presented.
We should move.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, David. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you. Let's move into our oral and written communication reports. Lutheran EMS monthly report. Hi there.
How are you?
Good.
It's a nice day outside.
It sure is.
All right. So I always have to get in the mindset that we are a month and a half behind when I come here, so I apologize. But so looking at September, we had a total encounters of 443 of those. One of the things that we looked at is kind of where that number statistically sits, and that sits pretty normal for September. Nothing really popped out significant through the month of September. We did see a little bit more involved in our accidents, which I'm sure Chief will kind of talk a little bit about because we needed some of their support through the rescue team and things like that throughout the month several times. But otherwise, nothing too significant popped out, just referencing the process of just truck placement and looking at that, staying all pretty consistent throughout the month. In the month of September, we did host our annual car seat event. We actually used the Family Safety Day to help advertise that. So with Shirley's help and the committee's help, we were able to set up a booth and were able to give out car seats. And then we would have them actually come to the clinic that following weekend, and we walked the parents through how to install those and made sure that the children that were in those seats appropriately and fitted, and the parents knew how to use those things. So at that clinic in September, we had a total of 22 cars that came through. We ended up with 98% of the time we made 2 or more corrections on the car seats that were coming through that clinic. So pretty significant impact that clinic had on our community and getting those kids safe. So otherwise, that was our month. So question?
I'm going to ask a question that's probably a great answer for, I don't know why I've never noticed it, but on the very first graph here of your runs, on the left column, it says CPR, no transport.
Yep. So those are runs in reference to cardiac arrest that we don't end up getting ROSC back from. So we don't end up getting pulses back and having to transport those patients. So those would be patients that are considered to be deceased at home.
Not a good outcome.
Yes.
Okay. I
like
kind
to-
of assumed that, but I didn't know
Yeah.
if they would have been transported anyway.
No, not
Okay.
usually.
All right. Sorry I brought it up.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Any other questions?
We like to keep that number as low as possible.
It's very low.
Yes.
Thankfully.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
guess my only question
Yeah.
would be, your opening statement, you said, I forget, I'm a month and a half
Yeah.
behind. It made me think, has something occurred since this report came out? that
well,
you wanted to
so-
share with us?
So I do the month like previous, usually by, I don't know, probably the 3rd or the 4th of the month, I get it to Shirley for the next month. So I had just finished, I don't know, what was it, Tuesday or something that I gave it. And I actually pulled that report, and then I got here and I was like, oh, wait, I have the wrong one. So I talked to Shirley.
Is it
about
running true to?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
very consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, in October, with the data that I pulled, we'll talk about that we're starting to see a little bit more of the respiratory stuff almost early. So,
RSV?
no, not so much RSV as we're seeing more pneumonias, which is weird because it's really early for that. So,
All right, well,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. All right, Chief, you want to dive into the fire monthly activity report?
Absolutely. And it just occurred to me too that we're talking about September. Family Safety Day was in September. And so one of the biggest coordinators and cheerleaders is Shirley. And I think it came off really good this year. So public kudos to hers and the whole committee, because there was, Chief Ansel sitting here was a large part of that too. There was an army that made that happen. Lutheran was a part of it. Huge benefactor and donator to that one. So there's just, we don't always get to say thank you because we kind of do this in the rears, but that was a huge event and we're very thankful for all the participation. Our September was actually slower as well compared to summer months, and then coming into fall, we did a lot of EMS and a lot of CARES, which Chief Ansel will get to. One thing that you'll notice in there, and I chuckle because we don't get these very often, but it's a real thing, is we had an animal rescue that we took part of over in Southwest Territory in St. Joe County. And Chief Bollinger just happened to be in the right place at the right time, coming back from a technical rescue class when they had a very large horse fall into a pool. And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but the pool was empty. So horses don't just jump right out of pools. And so it took a massive coordination effort between about 5 fire departments. We put a blurb on it on Facebook back in September when it took place. But maybe this is a real thing. That was a pooled resources from lots of people, and we were a part of that. And so it was nice to see that the horse survived and had a nice outcome.
So you piqued my interest. How did they get the horse out of the pool?
Well, a combination of a little bit of a ramp. They took some chunks out of the pool because the pool was not serviceable anyway, and they also used a fire hose, wrapped it up underneath of it, and basically yanked. They had to sedate the horse, so they had veterinarians, emergency veterinarians come out and do their thing. So, I mean, it was, like I said, it sounds simple and somewhat kind of laughable, but
It doesn't sound
it's a huge effort to get an animal that size out of a hole like that. So, yeah, kudos to all them. Like I said, we put pictures up on Facebook when it occurred, but that's been, a month and a half ago.
Thank you for explaining that, 'cause I was going to ask that. Why were we in South Bend rescuing animals? So thank you. 'Cause I know Grant Road area. So I was wondering.
So
thank you.
we went, MABUS is Mutual Aid Box Alarm System, and
Right.
we do joint trainings with multiple counties, and we're part of that regional rescue team. And so when
Right.
we send people to training, it's all over the place. Again, Chief Bollinger just happened to be coming back from a
Right.
regional training event, so they had all the things at the right place at the right time, right location. So it was,
That's great. So he heard it over his comms.
yeah, they were right there. I mean,
That's
they
excellent. Well, thank you. very
literally
much.
5 minutes away, so
Great.
it worked out well.
Timing is everything.
The timing is everything. Nothing amazing as far as fire and EMS calls really stands out. The training hours really ramp up towards fall and winter with some of the classes that we have to get into. I'll let Chief Ansel go over CARES because that's a huge part, and it seems to be getting larger and larger. our overlapping calls that we usually talk about, we hover around 30% each month. This month it was 23%. So again, just down tick a little bit, but September was historically a little bit slower. So, and then if you scroll to the very bottom of the entire report, you'll see what I consider community risk reduction, which is the public education, CPR, all the things that we do out in the public. We were able to go out and make contact with, it's rated 626 personnel, and that and the training hours really go up. So when we're not out doing things, taking calls and other things like that, it turns to seasons when the schools are in and other things take place. So pending your questions.
I have none. Any of the others? All right,
No.
Chief, thank you for that. Chris, do you want to come up and give the CARES update report?
Sure. I did hand out the paperwork that Michaela put together for the month. This is actually from November, so we're actually we're up to speed. This is from November. So you can see that we had, and I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but we had quite a few referrals. We had quite a few check-ins on some folks. And I did want to explain that just a little bit. We do quite a few follow-ups, but those follow-ups typically are for people who might be headed for a crisis situation if we didn't do the follow-ups. So by popping in and visiting with them occasionally, we keep them out of that crisis situation and maybe keep them from calling 911 and, I don't want to say abusing, but misusing some of the resources that we have in our community that, again, as Chief Mayo says, month after month, we're just getting busier and busier. So by not misusing some of those resources, they're able to refocus and do some other things. So we had 75 total interactions for the month of October. We're still, Michaela's still training people in QPR, which is the suicide prevention training that we do. We've got quite a few other people that are interested in that, so she's going to continue to do that for us. It's really beneficial to have people understand that they can talk to others if they think they might be suicidal and hopefully prevent them from doing anything and get them to the help that they need. So that is what the QPR training is. 16 new consumers, that seems to be going up all the time. Just more and more referrals from police departments, sheriff's office. We actually have been as far away now as North Webster for a quick referral up there on a veteran who was really struggling and couldn't get to resources. And we went up and were able to find a resource within his community. So that should take care of itself. But we certainly want to address those when we have the opportunity to do so.
With the 75 total interactions
Yes,
compared to months past, how do you see that number staying the same, up, down?
It climbs about 10% a month, I would say. Chief Mayo, do you think that's probably about right? About 10% a month, it seems like. One other thing that we did do is we've started having meetings on crisis intervention training. And so we're really putting together a group that's going to work with NAMI to certify it. But we're going to be doing hopefully doing some crisis intervention training for law enforcement, probably after the first of the year. Older police officers, older members of law enforcement have had that, but they kind of stopped doing it. And so a lot of the younger officers don't have that ability. And what that really is de-escalation, diffusing type training, dealing with people who are having probably the worst day of their lives, getting them to kind of calm down, have a good conversation, and then make it a productive interaction. So that's the goal. Other counties around us are already doing that. We feel like that's a CARES thing. We can get other folks the ability to do that de-escalation piece. So we're pretty happy about that as well.
In service, 3-4 hours?
It's actually, if you do the true CIT class, it's a 40-hour course.
Okay,
And so what we're looking at is probably doing it in steps.
okay.
To ask Warsaw PD or the Sheriff's Office to give us 5 officers for 40 hours is kind of probably not going to happen. They have other responsibilities. But if we could get 2 at a time, let's say, for that 40-hour training, bring in the other county departments, just kind of open it up to whoever wants to come and be a part of that. We could certainly have 10 or 12 folks in each of those programs and do 2 or 3 of them, with the goal being that you might have somebody who's CIT trained on every shift or a couple people on every shift. Allen County went to that a long time ago. Their county sheriff's office uses that, CIT trained officers, and it works out really well for them. So
Thank
kind
you very
of
much.
borrowing the idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Chris,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I just recently became aware, and I'm really asking a question. I want you to educate me if you know, of a hotline number 988.
Yes, sir.
I'd never heard of that before. Do we use that locally? And
So-
what specifically is that for?
So
Could
the
you
state
tell
of,
me?
the state of Indiana has adopted 988 as the crisis or suicide hotline. We've always had a suicide hotline. Most people were unaware. A lot of people didn't know it existed, so they would never call it. They would call 911. The state's putting a lot of money towards this 988 project, and they're doing a lot of education, PR, if you will, on TV and different ads and things to try to educate people. They want people who are in a mental health crisis to call 988, and instead of going to a 911 operator, it would go to someone who's specially trained to deal with somebody in a mental health crisis. Then the eventual evolution of this would be that there would be a local crisis response team that would then go to that home. As I understand it, the way the state's pushing money out to the community health providers, and I don't have all the details on this because we are not a community mental health provider. Bowen is our community mental health provider. But they're telling them to do certain things so that they can capture first the money involved to do it because they have to hire staff and it takes resources to respond to these situations. But they have to be able to respond, I believe, to a 45-mile radius within an hour with that crisis response team to deal with that person who's having a rough time. So I believe that's the goal.
So if somebody locally were to call that number, where would that call go to?
I had, until
you know.
recently, I thought it was going to go to Bowen, but I believe the state has contracted with some other providers to take those calls, and then they reach out to the local community health provider and ask for a response to the
So
situation.
indirectly, it still comes up to a local
Yes,
mental health care provider.
yes,
And that would, in our case, in our community, that would be Bowen.
yes, but I don't believe they have their crisis team set up yet. I think they're still working through that. We've had some discussions in the past week or so with them about this very topic, and I'm not sure where that's at yet.
Mayor, do you know anything about
The
that?
resurgence of that is relatively new,
Okay,
and we're actually working through that now,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So eventually, sometime we might see on a report like this, if in trouble, call 988, or we can get that number out to people, because it's pretty easy. It's gonna be easier than dialing 453-7901.
It is, but we get a lot of referrals through 911
Okay.
already.
Okay.
We also get referrals through other public safety folks. Law enforcement's been contacting us quite a bit lately and asking us to go visit with people. And we do that almost on a daily
So
basis. in some
in an
form.
emergency situation, go ahead and call that 911. You're not abusing that resource by doing so.
Well, to me, in a perfect world, 988 maybe could have been utilized to go through the same dispatch center, and then that dispatcher could have
Yeah.
triaged which way that needed to go.
Yeah, that would make sense,
But
wouldn't it?
then you have to get everybody playing nicely together with each other to make that happen, and I think we're still trying to find our way on that, honestly.
Okay. Well, it was new to me, and
yeah.
I didn't know if anybody else had
No.
heard of it.
Great question.
I
Yeah,
just
the
wanted to educate
suicide
myself.
hotline, and Chief Mayo is a veteran, maybe knows this better than I do, but as my understanding, the suicide hotline initially was set up for veterans to call to get some assistance, and then it became a very publicly pushed out number, but I still think it had a lot of trouble. People didn't know it was there. And so now they're trying to, just like you used to have to call a regular phone number to get a police officer, now you call 911. I think that's the idea behind 988. Let's make it a 3-digit number, everybody can remember it, and if you really hit that crisis point, you can call.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, let's move into our expenditure reports. We'll start with the operating fund. I'll ask for your approval after we answer your questions, and/or Chief, if you've got anything you want to point out.
There's just starting to see a lot of the summer and year-end spending of ticket items that we would typically hold off till the latter part of the year being spent. Some of the supplies, some of the repairs, I was looking down through there, our fuel's pretty much where it normally is. I saw some air pack repairs. There was something else that jumped out at me. Oh, one of the clothing allowance payments comes in that goes out to all the members of the department. We had a couple repairs on apparatus that were a little heavy, but we're still in line with where we need to be.
All right, questions? Is there
I'd
a
make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further questions? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. And then the equipment, excuse me, equipment replacement fund. Appears there were a few expenditures there. Some lighting equipment.
Yes, there's some repairs and upgrades to the stations that were budgeted in there that come out of this fund. You might have seen some of the stuff on Facebook about Station 1 and its upgrades. Some lighting upgrades, some carpet that needed to be done, some painting in the bays, just what I would consider, preserving the life of the station, so.
Yeah, I stopped down at Station 1, was made aware of those improvements, so it's good to see those have gone ahead.
If you wait till mid-December, all the paint should be done. So you'll see the paint, the walls, the floors and everything. If you go right now, the walls don't look as good and the bays aren't done. So yeah, if you want to stop in and see the finished product, about mid-December.
All right, any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the appropriations report.
For the equipment replacement fund.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, with no unfinished business, we'll just move to some travel requests under new business. Those have been presented to you in your board pack, and seem to be pretty light. Questions? If not, is there a motion to approve the travel requests as presented?
I'll motion that to approve it.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, and any other matters come before the board tonight? All right, questions, comments?
Well, we appreciate all you guys do and gals. Thank you.
No kidding.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all.
How's family been? Good?
All right.
All right, I have no idea. I'm just making general conversation. I stay in my little cave on a cul-de-sac.